So I have a question with a number of elements in it. First of all, I believe it was Chantal Morin. You spoke about the demographic weight of Francophones and how it's decreasing. So has the demographic weight of the Anglophones gone up while the Francophone stays the same? Or is it, or do you have other information indicating that, Francophones are actually leaving? That would be my first question. And then I'll ask my next question later. So currently the population is actually going up. The Anglophone population has not been going down. And there are immigrants coming to Saskatchewan, but most of them are Anglophone or Allophone. The problem is just that there are very, very few Francophone immigrants coming to Saskatchewan. And if they're coming, I imagine they're coming for work. So the other question I have for you, I understand that in the north, uh, climate and the distance between cities is obviously very different than elsewhere. But I'd like to know, are you facing more of a challenge in terms of attraction and retention, or in the ability to offer services to people coming? Well, I'll start. I think it's all of the above. First of all, we have to get people to come in the first place. So we have to attract them. And when, Canada is promoted as a country, people often hear about Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, but they hear very little about Saskatchewan. So we really need to work to attract people to all regions of the country. And we need to allow people to make an informed decision about where they want to settle. That would be the first part. And when it comes to retention, obviously, if we don't have the services in place to welcome newcomers, it's a problem. Transportation is a huge problem that has a big impact on retaining newcomers. Because if we bring them to one of our small communities, maybe the nearest city is an hour's drive away. So if they don't have their driver's license, then they're dependent on a neighbor or a friend to be able to get a ride. And that could be for important things like going to the airport, going to a medical appointment in the city, just basic paperwork. So, yeah, transportation is a big challenge when it comes to retaining people. I think that's probably a challenge for any rural community that's far from a major center. Ms. Le Bon wanted to say something. Oh, yes, yes, that's where I was going. I was just going to invite her to answer as well. So sorry about my voice today. I'll do my best. So I'll answer the second part of the question there. I've worked a lot on the ground, and there are a lot of people who have left Moose Jaw for Quebec. Top two reasons they give are the lack of jobs, the lower salaries, and then problems with recognition of diplomas. I have a lot of family that have left, unfortunately, and those are the three main reasons that they cite. That's all I wanted to add to what Chantal had said earlier. And Yellowknife, could we get an answer there as well? Sorry, I'm not seeing the raise hand button on my screen. Don't worry, we hear you. Okay, so to answer your question, I mentioned in my presentation that our organization is integrated with the Cultural Integration Center of the Northwest Territories, and it's a bilingual center that brings together a number of services. Now, I'm very focused on retention. We already have a person who is dedicated to attracting newcomers. We have another person who's focused on settlement and direct services. And my focus is really retention. So we're in year 3 of the project here. You know, how many people are still here after coming in year 1? Not that many. You know, it's the lack of housing, it's the cold, it's, you know, problems of recognition of skills recognition. So there are a lot of basic problems there, notably in the medical sector.
So, yes, there's a lot of turnover. And that's why the Welcoming Francophone Communities initiative is so important. It's a way to get people to stay by offering them activities, by offering them a sense of community, even if it's a very cold community. I mean, when it's minus 40, I don't want to go outside, but there are activities out there. At the very least, there's a hand extended saying there are things to do here. So, yes, retention is a major issue. Go ahead, Senator. Inaudible. Over the last few years, have you seen increased interest on the part of Francophones? Or is it more stable? And given that the Francophone services might be more accessible, are, are we getting more Francophone immigration? Or is it affected more by the season and housing and other factors? Who would like to take that one? I was addressing my question to the lady from Yellowknife. Well, that's me. I don't know if you want to take that one, Jean-Marie, because you've been in town much longer than I have, so you have a more general sense of things. Yes, I've been here for about 30 years. At one point, we had practically no French language services. There was maybe a Francophone population of maybe 800, 900 people. And now we're at 1,200, 1,300. Francophones have been calling on services throughout that time. For example, health services. And the presence of all of these services has given people more of a desire to stay. So people will often move up here for family reasons. They might also leave for family reasons or to get a job, especially in this period of high employment throughout Canada. Coming to Yellowknife is always a bit of a transition. Some people do stay for a certain amount of time, a year or two, but they do tend to be drawn away to the south. And it's a little surprise when rent it costs $2,000 a month. You know, we're up in the north, we're isolated, we're far flung, but the fact that we have offered more francophone services has made things more stable and gotten more francophones to stay, despite the fact that people tend to come and go. I work in education, and I have seen that people don't tend to stay for very long. Integration is very important because in this context. And more work needs to be done in all different sectors. Even things like the availability of driver's licenses can make a big difference as we seek to integrate people. Networks of friends are very important, social networks. That's about all I have to say. Yellowknife is a really beautiful community. You don't seem bothered by the fact that it's minus 40 degrees. Hey, it's all a question of mindset.